Hi, everybody. Hope you all are having a wonderful Wednesday. I'm coming to you a little bit early today. Wanted to make sure I got this update to you all as quickly as possible. So I am in Harrisburg. As you can see, it's been a few days of budget hearings and committee meetings, and I'll be updating you about those in just a second. We've got first the Rep Jess rundown. So taking the #1 spot, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is coming to Pennsylvania. We're getting about 94,000 doses this week, which the governor has decided are going to be distributed to intermediate units, IUs, to vaccinate teachers, school staff, and early childhood educators. Intermediate units are an organizing unit of school districts that are basically between the school district and the state government. Now I want to acknowledge a few things. School buildings being closed has definitely been stressful for caregivers and for teachers. Many students are also struggling to get their educational needs met virtually, especially those who are our youngest learners, who are English language learners, or who are students with disabilities. And yet at the same time, many of those in 1A, like older adults, who are most at risk to COVID are still struggling to get a vaccine appointment. So on one hand, I'm really glad that the governor did not add teachers to the broader pool in 1A. I want to be really clear about that teachers who are not otherwise in 1A because of age or pre-existing condition or something like that are not being added to 1A. They're not eligible for the Moderna or the Pfizer. They're only eligible for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine through the intermediate unit. This is good because it's not going to further strain existing systems or take away from that existing supply. I'm also glad President Biden has announced that there's going to be enough vaccine supply to vaccinate all Americans by May. So here's hoping that that's what happens. But despite all of that, I'm still calling on the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the governor to continue to do more to make it easier for our older adults and those with pre-existing conditions to get the vaccine. I'm going to run through some more details on the teacher vaccination program in a little bit. And we'll also talk a little bit more about efforts to get older adults vaccinated. At #2 in the rundown, I sat through the Department of Human Services budget hearings today. Now, since I'm not on the Appropriations Committee, I don't get to ask questions, but as a member of the Human Services Committee, I was allowed to attend and learn some more about the proposed budget for this department, which falls within the purview of that committee that I'm on. And many of the questions asked by my colleagues focused on making sure, especially during this difficult time, that we get assistance to those who need it most. And at #3, the Aging Committee, on which I sit, held a meeting this week where we asked questions of the Secretary of Aging. I was particularly focused on the difficulties that our older adults have in signing up to get the vaccines. And I asked the Secretary what they were doing to ensure that they were expanding capacity on those phone lines. And he did talk a bit about their expanding capacity. So I want to highlight that older adults can call this phone number, you can see it there at the bottom of the screen, to get help for scheduling a vaccine. I also asked the Secretary if he supported a centralized waiting list for vaccines, and he was certainly not opposed to it. So I pressed on whether older adults can be expected to continually make these phone calls around to so many different providers to try to find a vaccine. And I think it's so important that we have that one-stop shop where you can call in, maybe text in, I think that would be great, or fill out something online to ensure that you reserve your place in line, that you don't have to be calling around to lots of different places. So I'm still really fighting for that in the state legislature as well. I also was really honored. The majority chair of the Aging Committee complimented the questions that I asked. He called them outstanding. I was very, very happy about that. And he too added his support for a centralized waiting list. So next, let's talk district events really quickly. We've got a couple coming up. First, we've got our virtual office opening. I'll put the Zoom registration link for that in the comments section here so that you all can register to attend. I think it's going to be just really exciting. We'll have the opportunity to see what our office space is like, to meet our staff, and I think that'll be really great. You'll learn more about the services that we offer. I wish we could have you all in person and have some snacks and some mingling and all of that stuff, but for now, this is what I'll have to do. We also have coming up here a community cleanup that's happening in Arlington on March 27th from 10 to noon. at the Arlington Spray Park. I'm super excited about this. And if you want us to coordinate with you or with a community group for a cleanup in your neighborhood, just let us know. I got to tell you, some people tease me about this, but there is nothing more satisfying than picking up garbage, looking back, and seeing just a much cleaner street. That is really exciting to me. Let's talk vaccines here. It has been a little bit slower lately for me hearing back from the Department of Health on your questions about second doses. I did just post on Facebook a little while ago some information about doses that were received by providers this week, but there's definitely still some I'm waiting to hear back on. So hopefully they'll get back to me soon on those questions, but I do want to go over some of the frequently asked questions about the vaccine situation with the teachers here. First and foremost, I want to say that the COVID-19 vaccination is not mandatory, so no teachers or support staff are being forced to take the vaccine. I think that's really important. And then I want to talk about the process a little bit too. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccines that are received by Pennsylvania from the federal government will be distributed to those intermediate units that I talked about earlier. And that distribution is going to be based on the proportion of pre-K to 12 public and non-public school employees and contracted staff in the region that intermediate unit serves. And those IUs, we're going to work with schools to identify staff who are interested in receiving the vaccine, and then they're going to help those staff register for appointments. There's also a list in terms of how things are going to be prioritized. So once the vaccine is available, here's how the prioritization will happen. So first, pre-K through 12 teachers of students with disabilities and English language learners and related in-classroom support staff. And then second, elementary teachers, related in-classroom support staff, beginning with those youngest students. Then bus drivers and those who provide transport, support staff, and contracted service providers who have direct contact with elementary students. And then it'll be last, other priority school staff who typically have regular sustained in-person contact with students during the school day. So that's how that is going to go. There's an expectation that those regional sites are expected to begin operations between March 10th and 13th. So if you're a teacher, definitely be looking for information from your school about how you could potentially sign up to get the vaccine. So that's the update on that one. Last but not least, there's also been recently lots of legislation introduced around addressing the issues that folks are having with unemployment. So I'm excited about that. I've co-sponsored lots of that legislation. I'm hoping that we're going to see it move because the delays that people are experiencing in getting paid are simply unacceptable. So if you're having issues with unemployment or with literally anything else happening with the state, please feel free to reach out to my office. You can see the phone number and the email address are right here at the bottom. So definitely be sure to reach out if you're having any issues. And that's today's recap. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. See you all later.